If you've worked in tech, or any career really, for long, odds are you've had that moment staring at the screen thinking, I can't do this anymore. Or maybe it's more subtle. You keep grinding, you keep powering through, but deep down you know the joy is gone, and you have no idea how to get it back. Even if you're not there yet, there's a good chance you're on your way. Burnout doesn't hit all at once. It sneaks up until you can't remember the last time that this was fun. And if that's you, you're not alone. You're in a club with me, my friends, and at least one Nobel Prize winning physicist who discovered the cheat code. Hey there, my name is Michael Carducci, and this is Dev Random, a channel about technology, sure, but it's also about curiosity, culture, history, wisdom, and those hidden cheat codes for a life well lived. And that's why we're talking about Richard Feynman today. Not because he was a genius, but because he figured out how to keep joy alive when most of us lose it. Now, to be clear, I'm not here to put Feynman on a pedestal. In fact, I've read his biographies. There's plenty to criticize. No, instead, we're here to raid his toolbox. That feeling, that burnout, I know I'm not alone in this feeling. In fact, this popped up on my phone, literally as I sat down to write this script. And I get it. I've been there a bunch of times. Once I handed in my notice by throwing a brand new iPhone into a lake, buying a motorcycle, and disappearing off the grid for a month. Another time, I should have walked away, but didn't. That time I tried to make meaning out of the burnout, like maybe this was my purpose. Maybe the suffering was the point. Spoiler! It didn't make me profound. It didn't make me special. It just made me miserable. And honestly, a bit of a jerk.
He hates these cans!
Richard Feynman, he hit the same wall. But instead of rationalizing it like I did, he said screw it and went his own way. You see, by the late 1940s, Richard Feynman had already lived multiple lifetimes. The Wunderkind at MIT and Princeton, helping design the atomic bomb at Los Alamos, the young hotshot professor at Cornell, with the whole world waiting for his next big discovery. But instead of breakthroughs, he felt nothing. Physics disgusted him. Everyone else saw a genius at the top of his game, but he saw a fraud who couldn't do the work anymore. I remember reading in his biography, he wrote, I simply couldn't get started on any problem. I remember writing one or two sentences about some problem in gamma rays, and then I couldn't go any further. I was convinced that from the war and everything else, the death of my wife, I had simply burned myself out. And now at the same time, he kept getting eye-popping job offers. Even the opportunity to work with Einstein and von Neumann at the Institute for Advanced Study in a special role that they created just for him, a position that was better than Einstein's. But every offer he got didn't validate him, didn't excite him, they just made him more depressed. And then he had a revelation. He tried to remember when he used to enjoy doing physics. He said, why did I enjoy it? I used to play with it. I used to do whatever I felt like doing. It didn't have to do with whether it was important for the development of nuclear physics, but whether it was interesting and amusing for me to play with. And this changed everything. He went on and said, now that I'm burned out and I'll never accomplish anything, I've got this nice position at the university, teaching classes which I rather enjoy. I'm going to play with physics whenever I want to, without worrying about any importance whatsoever. That was the release valve. When he stopped chasing expectations and started playing again, he unlocked the work that eventually won him the Nobel Prize. And here's the deeper truth. We've been conditioned to think everything we learn has to be not only useful, but immediately useful. Choose the right degree, get the right job. Don't waste time on useless knowledge. But when we only chase what looks useful or important, we miss the sideways discoveries, the happy accidents, the things that only make sense years later. Now, Feynman understood this. He followed his curiosity even when it looked pointless. Samba bands, sketching in art class, dabbling in biology, lockpicking, safecracking, whatever was fun. And those useless pursuits, they gave him a different set of tools that opened surprising new doors. But finding joy again is more than just shedding the expectations of others. It's also about shedding the expectations we've placed on ourselves. The real shift is realizing that the roles that we think exist, the boxes that we put ourselves in, are often just made up. I learned that lesson the first time I went skydiving. Now, this was supposed to be a one-off, a birthday adventure, a bucket list thrill. But on that ride up, I saw something that changed everything. There was one person on the plane. He wasn't staff. He wasn't a tandem student. He was just a guy who jumped for fun. And I realized that could be me. The roles that I thought existed, tourist or instructor, were fabricated, a limitation that existed only in my head. So instead of buying one more ticket, I signed up for training. A week later, I was doing my first solo. A few weeks after that, I had my license. See, skydiving taught me that someday isn't on the calendar. It taught me that we put ourselves in boxes of our own construction. And most importantly, that everything that is cool in life is on the other side of fear. Feynman lived the same way. Now that he was free from the shackles of roles and expectations, he decided to learn a language. Now, he almost picked Portuguese, but second-guessed himself and learned Spanish instead. You see, Spanish is spoken in more countries and is more useful knowledge. But then came an opportunity to teach in Brazil, where they speak Portuguese. Bruh. He chose poorly. So here's this opportunity. He has the wrong language. It's inconvenient in a lot of ways, like any of us. He could have come up with a million reasons to turn it down. But it was new, and it was different, and it was interesting. So he said, why not? And he put in the work to learn Portuguese. He learned the basics. He leaned on colleagues to help translate his lectures. Now, he didn't have to translate his lectures, but he thought it'd be nice for the students and fun for him. While he was there, he fell in love with the music of the land. He fell in love with samba. He joined a local samba collective. Now, he didn't have a musical background. He wasn't very good, but he wasn't doing it to be good. He was doing it because it was fun. He kept at it. And eventually, he got better. He developed his style. And that samba collective picked him to play at Carnival. Now, he was initially surprised to be picked. And he thought about it and realized something profound. Even though he could never replicate the samba that was in the blood of the locals, he could create something unique, the fusion of his background and their music. He called it his musical accent. It's all about perspective. We can fixate on what we can never recreate, or we can focus on our unique constellation of skills and experiences to create something wholly unique, one of a kind, and authentic. Something that can only exist when we work within constraints. Back in the US, for Feynman, it was the same story. One afternoon, he saw somebody tossing a plate in the air in the cafeteria. He noticed a wobble. And he decided to model the physics of that wobble just for fun. He wasn't trying to do important work. He was just playing. But following that curiosity eventually led to a Nobel Prize. I'm going to say that again. There is a straight line from trying to model a plate spinning in the air that somebody's tossing around the cafeteria to a Nobel Prize. But that's the power of curiosity without expectation. You never know which playful detour will connect. But when you live outside the boxes, you open the door to something magical. You open the door to serendipity. Serendipity is when the random pieces of your life suddenly fit together. It looks like luck, but it isn't. Psychologist Richard Wiseman studied this for years and found that lucky people aren't luckier by chance. They're luckier because they notice more, they try more, and they connect more dots. This is Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman. One of the biographies I read in preparation for writing the script. I've read them before, but it was great having a fresh view. It's a book of stories and adventures from this endlessly curious character. What makes it fascinating is that by seeing the whole arc of his entire life, you can watch how the odd, playful things that he did opened so many serendipitous doors. But in real life, we rarely get to see the whole story all at once. See, serendipity doesn't usually announce itself in the moment. The payoff comes later when you look back and realize that the things that happened to you actually happened for you. That awareness, that skill, is what Wiseman found separates the lucky from the unlucky. So, how do we design a life that makes room for this kind of serendipity? But let's start with the simplest shift, how we approach learning. One of the ways expectation and burnout creep back in is how we've been conditioned to see learning. We've been told we're always behind, always racing to catch up. And that makes learning feel like an obstacle, like a tax on our time. But what if we flip that? What if, instead of treating learning as a penalty, we treat it as an opportunity for play? That's the shift. Learning isn't a delay, it's the path. Each detour adds new tools to your toolbox, and one day you find out that those tools turn out to be exactly what you needed. So here's the action. When you hit something new, don't just push past it. Don't just delegate to ChatGPT. Ask yourself, is this interesting enough to explore? If yes, build in time for it. Estimate for exploration. Treat it as play on the path to progress. Because every skill you pick up is another piece on the board, another chance for serendipity to click later. And there's this other myth about learning that's really hard to shake, that learning takes place in large downloads.
Can you fly that thing?
Not yet. Let's go.
If only. But here's the truth about learning. We don't grow in straight lines. We grow in deltas, small sideways shifts that add up over time. Everything we learn creates a foundation for the next thing we learn, the next tiny delta. That's the power of deltas. Every little side skill becomes a building block. Any one of them can become a linchpin later. If you're a developer, go spend time with QA. If you're in QA, shadow product for a while. If you're in product, try support. Every time you step sideways, you step forward because you gain a new lens, a new tool in your toolbox. And sometimes that's all it takes to see what no one else can. But here's the catch. Serendipity only works if we keep the aperture open. And frustration is what slams it shut. And look, I'm not immune to this. Producing this channel is hard. Writing, shooting, editing.
Lizard, 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 lizard. Lizard, lizard.
Now, there's weeks that I catch myself thinking, we didn't record audio. We got to shoot this again. We got to do this again. We got to do it again. But then I remind myself, I get to do this. I get to chase ideas, tell stories, pull threads from history and science and magic, and share them with you. So yeah, the frustration is real, but so's the joy. And choosing which one to focus on makes all the difference. And I'll be honest, this is easier said than done. Embracing the learning means stepping outside of your comfort zone. And if you've been coasting there for long enough, it's easy to forget what it feels like to be new at something. But that's where the magic happens. When I started skydiving, I was bad. I biffed pretty much all of my first 80 landings. PLF, 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 walking in muddy and bruised. I also couldn't control my fall rate. So we'd jump as a group, and I would fall right out. Half the time I walked away thinking, maybe this sport isn't for me. But here's the thing. That's the price of being new. And somewhere along the way, most of us, myself included, forgot how to pay it.
Dude, sucking at something is the first step towards being sort of good at something.
But sticking with it, pushing through the awkward, frustrating, I'm terrible at this phase, that's how you grow. That's how you find the breakthroughs on the other side of fear. And honestly, that's one of the cheat codes. If you can relearn how to be bad at something and stick with it long enough to cross the gap, you unlock whole new chapters of your life. The time is going to pass no matter what. It's up to you to decide what to do with it. And all of this is why the Whole Earth Catalog, one of the Bibles of curiosity and adventure in the 1970s, ended with the words that Steve Jobs later made famous. Stay hungry. Stay foolish. Hungry means insatiable curiosity, always learning, breadth and depth together. Foolish means stepping in before you feel ready, trusting play, trusting discomfort, trusting serendipity to do its work. And from someone who quit his job to launch a YouTube channel, stay hungry, stay foolish. And hey, if you want to be a bad influence and enable my foolishness, you can either check out my Patreon, link in the description, or check out this week's sponsor, No Fluff, Just Stuff. This is where the hungry have gone to learn for over 25 years. Unique, one-of-a-kind, attendee-centric conferences with deep dives. No sponsored sessions, no vendor halls, no sales pitch. Just learning and growth and community. We've got a few more events coming up this year. I'm going to be at all of them. I've been speaking at No Fluff, Just Stuff events for over a decade now, and really helped build my mental awareness and my mental models. And I will tell you this, if you like me, you'll love No Fluff, Just Stuff. I hope to see you at one of the events soon. See you next time.
Lizard, 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 lizard.
I know. Authenticity, inspiring curiosity.